Hello everybody, I'm DurchBurch, and welcome to a rant. It's been a while since I got any of these out, and believe it or not, there's another one coming after this one in 2 days. So, today's rant is about, I mean, you guys have seen the thumbnail and the title, so I might as well not, beat around the bush. It's about Symmetra and the fact that she is autistic. That makes Symmetra one of the first characters in a video game, at least major characters, to actually be autistic. Which is actually one of the more surprising things to me, is the fact that there have been so few. So I'm going to go a little bit through the history of autism, very minorly, and then, kind of bring it into Symmetra a bit more. So autism was first diagnosed in like 1940-something, it was about 43. It wasn't called autism at the time, but that was when it was first noticed. Pretty sure. Something like that. But basically, it got more and more noticed, especially around the late 90s, or mid to late 90s, and early 2000s, when the anti-vaccine movement for autism took off. That's also when autism started to get diagnosed a whole lot more. Partially because there were more severe cases of note, there were more people that they saw having this. And so they were like, oh, well, this, has to be something that we should be addressing. And that's where autism kind of became this thing that is now, talked about in the media and psychological and psychiatric journals, It's this whole big thing now. And it, to some people, seemingly arose out of nowhere, which is why there are some people who think that it's A, not a thing, B, stupid because of the anti-vaxxer movement, which most people are not anti-vaxxers when it comes to autism. I'm pretty sure it's Autism Speaks that mainly led that charge, and I think even they have now said that that's not true. To kind of try and save face, but they were fervently, on the side of vaccines cause autism for a hell of a lot of time. But, so that's where autism came from. And the fact that Symmetra has it, some people might argue it's a bad thing, like how a lot of times characters who wind up being gay are either crazy or evil. Or both. That's the other option. And, you might say, well, Symmetra's in a similar boat on that front. She works for Vishkar. Vishkar is evil in the Overwatch universe. They are the people that Lucio, fought against. He stole their technology and stuff. And it's like, well, the thing is, she really, because she is autistic, there are some... turn my volume on my computer down so the notifications like that don't pop up. But anyways, the fact that she is autistic gives her some social communication issues, but also some difficulties in kind of coming to terms with what she is doing, or not so much coming to terms with what she's doing, but the fact that she's more pushed towards it by Vishkar. Like, Vishkar kind of brainwashed her, which is not the hardest thing to do with someone who's autistic. I'm autistic, I'm high-functioning, but I have, kind of had moments where I've, definitely believed something, unequivocally. I was an anti-vaxxer for a while, because my mom is, but the more and more I looked into it, the more and more I realized that was wrong. It's not an uncommon thing to have, this fervent belief system. And then once that belief system is set in, too, autistic people tend to not want to change. there's this tendency towards almost a stubborn personality, like an unyielding need or want to do something in particular. Like, there's repetitive actions and things like that, but that's not even in this, field. That what we're talking about here is more so habits and rituals is more like what we're talking about here, like things that they do or believe because that is what they are told, that is what they do, that is it. Like, Symmetra works for Vishkar. That is what she does. Like, Vishkar, she works for them, and she feels that what she's doing is good, so they can't be bad. So she works for them, and she works for them, and she works for them. And then if anyone tries to show her that Vishkar is bad, there's the potential for her to get very upset about that, because she works for them, she feels like what she's doing is good, so they must be good. It's kind of a almost a naivety, but I don't want to call it that. That feels kind of like more negative towards it. It's not being naive, it's just being habitual and ritualistic and kind of getting into this cycle of, I work here, I think what I'm doing is good, what I am doing is good, and what they are doing is good. Like, kind of this series, this cycle of associations that are all coming from repeated actions. And then trying to break that cycle is not something you want to do. Like, one of my cycles that I got into was getting on the bus. If I was able to get onto the bus, I was fine. That was the normal order of things. If I missed it, or if I knew it was supposed to be there and it was late, I would get very, I would start entering this near panic state of, did I miss it? Or, is it late? And I would check, and I would try to make sure that it was just late, but sometimes that wasn't something I could do. And if it came late, I was fine. I still got on the bus. If someone had more severe autism, it might be that the bus didn't come at the exact time that it's supposed to, or at this exact time that it usually does. So there's something wrong, and that causes the kind of breakdown, tantrum kind of thing. Mine was more so, I missed the bus, because if I missed the bus, then I had to go out of my way to get my parents to drive me to school and stuff like that, and that process was very difficult. One time I missed the bus, but then because I was coming out the door as they left, they turned around and came to get me. This was in elementary school, so I was young, so I was less in control of this, but I missed the bus, and I was walking out the door as it drove away. Now, they noticed, but it was too late for them to just stop. So they turned around, and I actually missed the bus the second time because I was too busy throwing the tantrum in the house. I'd gone into the house and started having a mental breakdown. I'd missed the bus. And now I had to have my parents drive me to school, and that's not the way things normally were. That's not how it was supposed to be. And I had this mental breakdown that literally made me miss the bus fully because I was so out of it because I'd missed the bus in the first place. And so that is part of the reason why Symmetra is with Vishkar and is so, fervently for Vishkar. It explains that and makes it more of a tragic story of them knowingly abusing someone's, neurological disorder against them, and against the world. Like, that is a bad thing to do. It makes Vishkar more evil, and Symmetra less evil, to find out that she is autistic. It is just immensely important that, autism is shown in a good light. And while it may at first seem that autism is being shown in a negative light here, it's being shown in a tragic light. And that's the major thing that has to be noted. It's not being shown as, oh, autism makes people these, crazy, I will work for the evil company people. Like, no, it's it makes it so that if the evil company works it out properly, they can get them to be at that level of seemingly evil. And like, Symmetra was always one of my favorite characters, and it only further made her a character that I enjoyed to play, knowing that, you know, she has, you know, high-functioning autism, I have high-functioning autism, I have friends with high-functioning autism, and it's really cool to see that representation in a game the size of Overwatch. Overwatch is massive, and it's played by literally tens of millions of people every day. I think it was like 35 million people play Overwatch every day across all platforms. That is an insanely high number. And to know that autism is being portrayed in a well-thought-out and sensitive light, you know, that is just something that we really need. Like, there are autistic characters in other things. I've heard, I think it was Watch Dogs or Watch Dogs 2, there's an autistic hacker. The thing is, there's still a hacker. It's like, it's the same thing as Trevor in GTA. Trevor is gay. Like, I'm pretty sure it's Trevor. Trevor's the balding guy in GTA 5 who's like the crazy hillbilly guy. Now, he's gay, but he's also a crazy and bad person. The fact that they have him being, oh, he's the gay protagonist. Well, no, he's not a protagonist in the sense that he's doing good. He's the protagonist in the sense that the story is following his actions as if they are good, when they are not. They are clearly against the law. And that's the same thing I kind of get with the feeling of the autistic hacker. It's like, they don't have a reason, like a tragic reason for them to be breaking the law. They are just doing it. And like, the best thing about Symmetra is she doesn't want to kill people. She wants to do her job and protect society and people. And when things go wrong, and like when people are killed, she gets confused by that. Like, why are they, you know, why did they have to die? She specifically tried not to. And that's some of the stuff that like the Vishkar does that's bad, and that's some of the stuff that sort of make her question her alignment with Vishkar. Like, I think Symmetra is the best current character, outside of like indie games. Like, the best current character in a AAA large, well-known title, to be autistic. Like, she is so effectively done, so accurately done for someone with high-functioning autism. Like, it's something that's really well done. And that's something that we need more of, to be quite honest. Like, especially now that, you know, high-functioning autism forms are now all lumped in with just autism spectrum disorder, rather than the original diagnoses of things like Asperger's, which I had, PDD-NOS, which I had when I was when I was really young. Like, I was diagnosed PDD-NOS, but I was eventually had that changed to Asperger's syndrome. I can't remember what there were a few others. I can't remember them right now, but they're all now, for the most part, supposed to be, you know, no diagnoses were changed, but they're all lumped in with autism spectrum disorder, which doesn't quite cover the full breadth of stuff in a lot of its diagnostic criteria, which was what was met with a lot of contention at the start, and they're hoping to, you know, continue to update it and make it right. But a lot of people currently are happy with the DSM-5's autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, because it doesn't accurately gather a lot of the people who had Asperger's or PDD-NOS. They're now just weird people to society. They aren't diagnosable people. And the thing was, autism had more of a stigma than PDD-NOS or Asperger's syndrome. If somebody knew PDD-NOS and knew Asperger's syndrome, they knew, okay, so it's a higher functioning form. But a lot of times when people think of autism, like a lot of the people, there's been a lot of, you know, hateful things going on after Symmetra's autism announcement, with people saying things like autistic screeching or autistic screaming, just onomatopoeia of screams and stuff like that. And that's not right. That is, for some reason, that is the go-to, this is autism. That's not all autistic people. That is, some autistic people, they do have, inability to properly vocalize what they're feeling or what they are thinking. Some might be able to, but they still have these kind of screams and screeches that they use to communicate for the most part. I mean, even I made a lot of weird noises that I learned to stop doing. I still do that around family to a degree, but it's lesser than it was when I was really young and not really in control of myself. Like, the thing is, that is a very, very broad misconception of what autism is, and that's kind of the reason why high-functioning autism, it was kind of rough to see them just become, autism spectrum disorder, rather than more individualized things within autism and within the autism spectrum. And it's clear that Symmetra is higher functioning, and the fact that everyone is, just saying, oh, autistic screaming, autistic screeching, autistic shrieks, and things like that in comment sections about like Symmetra's diagnosis is just plain wrong. She clearly doesn't do that. You played her before, and for the most part, many people didn't notice that she was autistic in her speech, in her, voice lines and all that, in anything. Like, they noticed all of these things that said, that weren't just shrieks and screeches. It's not like she has a voice line that is an autistic screech. Like, that is not a thing, because that is, 1, wrong, and 2, not Symmetra. And it's like, people are extending their hate for how the character plays and the people who play the character into the disorder, and that's wrong. And they're also extending their hate for the disorder into a character that they dislike. Like, it's kind of like this two-way fusion of hatred, and that's not a good thing. That's not something we need right now. So while Symmetra being autistic is a good thing, the fact that people are immediately going to, all of the people who play her are, lower functioning, she is lower functioning, everyone about Symmetra and autism are all lower functioning. But that's not true. It's very not true, and it's very rude and offensive. And the biggest thing is, a lot of times you also see, along with those comments, people saying, I'm so happy to see this, I myself am high functioning, or I myself am, moderately, functioning, I have an autism diagnosis and stuff like that, and everyone's coming in like, no one cares. It's like, there are people who care, and clearly these people who are commenting this stuff care, because they're talking about something that personal, saying, I'm happy to see this. This is me, and I'm being represented. And they're like, no one cares about your diagnosis, or if you're being represented. No one cares. And it's like, that's not true. There are always people who care. And it's rude and offensive. And also, if you're saying no one cares, you clearly care that comment was there. You are somehow upset by that comment. You are for some reason upset by the idea of someone being represented. That makes no sense. There's no reason to be upset by someone being represented. There's no reason for that. That is the stupidest thing you could possibly be upset about. That's like being upset that there was a trigger warning. Like, there's nothing to be upset about a trigger warning. They're on everything. They're on movies. They're on games. I can find a trigger warning on the back of 1-2 Switch. It says, mild violence. That's a trigger warning. Like, trigger warnings are just warnings saying, hey, these things are present. If they offend you, don't watch. Or if trigger warnings are more specific, though, into the sense that if they trigger you into a traumatic experience, then that's a thing you should not experience, you should not watch. But like, these people are getting offended by the fact that people are being represented now. It's like, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. It's just a bad thing to be upset about. If there's anything to be upset about, it's not that. But I mean, I'm still happy for the most part that Symmetra is autistic, and that she represents it very, carefully. Like, they were very safe, or not safe, but like sure to make sure that her representation was not offensive, was not false, was not misleading in any way. Like, she is high functioning autistic. That is all she is. Like, and it's just good to see that that's a thing that's being represented now. It's been around for over a decade, and it's been common for over a decade, but yet it's not gotten much recognition in games. Like, that's really about it. But I'm happy to see it be a thing, but I'm unhappy to see the reaction that people have had, and that's the reason why we need this representation. It's because it teaches people that to be autistic is not wrong. It is not a bad thing. It is not something that is, worth, getting upset about. And that's what representation does. The fact that, okay, I see these awesome people who are like this. So people who have these things, like, people who are gay saying a gay character, feel better, like, this person's so cool, and they're like me, being autistic is like, Symmetra's so cool, and she's like me. Like, that type of thing is a good thing. We need that. It happens so much with majority troops. Like, having a white superhero who is a man is not uncommon. And then when they made female superheroes, girls were like, I'm a girl. She's so cool. She is like me. I can be cool. Like, it's that kind of idea. And to be offended by that is just... That's one of the things I can't stand about the reaction right now, is that it's literally the only people upset about the diagnosis being applied to Symmetra is that they don't feel like people should feel that they are cool. It's like, you shouldn't do that. Like, we know that there's a trans character in Overwatch, and no one's gotten overly upset, but sure enough, as soon as they come out with a trans character, and trans people are like, oh my god, this is really cool, I love this character, I'm so happy that they represent me. Or at least, a group I identify as part of, There's sure enough going to be people saying, no one cares that you are trans, or calling them horrible names like trannies, and sick, disorderly people when they're not. That's going to happen inevitably. And that's why we need this representation, to prove them wrong. To get the word out. Because the biggest way to lead to inclusion is to first educate. No one who's had a pet rat, like, hates rats in general. No one who has had, experience with a cat can just hate cats in general, unless they hate the action of most cats. Like, you can't just hate without experience. That's a thing that you see. I mean, actually, you can hate rats if you've had pet rats, but it's more so, you can't hate them if you haven't. Because if you haven't experienced it, you don't know that they are warranting hate. And that's why we need to allow people to experience these things. Not so much so that they can hate, but so that they can actually accept that it's a thing. But anyways, this is going on for a while. I'm going to end it here. Thanks for watching this rant. If you stuck with me through the whole thing, thank you, you're awesome. If you're autistic, what are your thoughts on this? Because while some people, and some trolls on the internet may not care. I care. Other autistic people care. People who know autistic people care. People care. So write your opinions in the comments. Just, be you. It is really just one thing I want to make sure to mention. Be yourself. Accept yourself. And just live your life. Don't be upset by what trolls are saying on the internet. But, that's about it, so. Bye. Have a nice day. I have things to do and stuff. Yeah. Thanks so much for watching my video. You see those thumbnails? The one on the left is recommended to you by YouTube. The one on the right is my most recent video. If you want to see more of my content, don't hesitate to subscribe. I'm also on the channel Pokemon News, so feel free to swing by and say hi.